about 17 days till Eagles camp as we get you kicked off. Football at 4 with John McMullen here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Mike and Ryan, we are live at the Barefoot Beach Bar, Marquis de Lafayette, 501 Beach Drive in Cape May. All right, John, how are you, sir? How was your 4th of July weekend?
Spectacular. How are you guys?
Spectacular. You went spectacular on us. All right.
How do we top that?
I don't know what to do with that one.
Me either.
All right. When we dive into the AFC East, as most people do, they would put New England at the top. So I guess we'll start there and just frankly say, is New England definitively, clearly at the top of the East?
Well, let me say real quick, that was a little embellishment as far as spectacular. But, yeah, there is no embellishment here. The New England Patriots are on top of the AFC East. There are a few certainties in life. That's one of them. And that has to do partially with the fact that the Patriots are really, really good. But also the rest of that division, as usual, is really, really weak.
All right, so let's look at the Patriots a little deeper here. Biggest strength would have to be obviously the Brady Belichick, but around them, the last couple of years we keep saying, all right, he's got to slow down, and at some point. But how is the roster around them as compared to the last couple of years?
Well, I think it's been a number of years where it's not been a top 5 roster. I'm not going to say there's not a lot of good players there, because there are. But I think if you start to think about maybe some of the really, really talented players, positional players during the Brady Belichick era, Rob Gronkowski's gone. Randy Moss obviously was there at one point putting up astronomical numbers. They've shifted from that. So they've found a lot of different ways to win over the years. And I think without Gronk, you shift again. It's going to be interesting. To me, the clear-cut strength beyond the quarterback and the coach is the offensive line. And that might surprise some people because there's not a ton of big names on that line like there is here, for instance, in Philadelphia. But they're really, really effective, and they have been for a number of years now.
John, obviously you mentioned that the roster is a little different, but where are some weaknesses on this team? If there's something that, I don't know, that causes the Jets or the Bills or the Dolphins to overtake them in the East, where is that weakness that we might look back and say they overlooked that spot?
Well, I think you look at some of the skill position players and you say, who is Tom Brady going to throw the football to outside of Julian Edelman? Who's a heck of a receiver, but he's strictly a slot receiver. So when you start talking about outside receivers, and I mentioned the glory days of when Moss was there, I mean, now it's Philip Dorsett, it's Dontrell Inman, it's Demaryius Thomas, who's coming off an injury, it's a rookie and N'Keal Harry. There's not a lot of receivers on this team. And then you no longer have the tight ends. The glory days were Gronk and Aaron Hernandez before, obviously, the latter's personal life went off the rails, and now you don't have either of them. And you're talking about Benjamin Watson, who's going to be suspended, and he's old anyway. There aren't a lot of names to throw the football to. So you start saying, look, this is the modern NFL. And when everybody was turning left, I talked about this last week when you were gone, Mike, with Jeff Mosher. When everybody else is turning left, throwing the football, Belichick, as he tends to do, took a sharp right-hand turn late in the season, in the playoffs, running the football with Sony Michel, lining up a fullback, James Devlin. Maybe this is the team. And Belichick has the capital to do this. He looks at the rest of the league and says, you know what? If you're going to put 6, 7 defensive backs on the field, if you're going to put linebackers who weigh 210 pounds on the field, 215 pounds, maybe I'm the guy to put James Devlin on the field and just knock your block on. Maybe that's the way they go about it.
Right. If you're going to go small, we're going to try to, we'll go double tight and put a fullback back there and start blasting you. He would be. Although, do they even have a running back to do that with?
Well, Sony Michel is pretty effective, and when you talk about the passing game, and I mentioned the dearth of weapons, especially outside the numbers, then you start talking about the James Whites of the world catching the football out of the backfield, Rex Burkhead catching the football out of the backfield. So that's a big part of what they do as well, especially late in Tom Brady's career, where obviously you don't want him throwing the football 60 yards down the field. So that short passing game becomes an extension of the running game as well. But Sony Michel was really, really effective as a runner late last season.
All right, what about the defense on this team? Because it's even in their great years. I mean, they had good defensive players, but it didn't seem like they never had like the best defensive player in the league type of guy. But where are they now as a defensive unit?
Well, it's been this way throughout the Belichick era. The sum is greater than the parts. You're right. They never have the Aaron Donald types or even the Fletcher Cox types. They just have a bunch of good players, and they scheme it up. And nowhere can you see better evidence of that than a player like Patrick Chung, who people are aware of from his year with the Eagles, which was not great, to be kind. And then he's back in New England, and he's making Pro Bowls. Now Michael Bennett's there. So he's going to be a big part of their defensive game plan and defensive line, and his ability and versatility to line up outside and inside. I think Bill Belichick is going to take tremendous advantage of that. And then Dante Hightower is obviously, I think, the heart and soul of that defense, and he'll be back healthy. So I think from a talent perspective, they're better on defense than offense. Secondary's pretty talented as well. When you look at a corner like Stephon Gilmore, you got the McCourty twins. I mentioned Chung, who's been effective. So I think they have more good players on the defensive side of the ball now than the offensive side. But hey, when you have Tom Brady, he tends to make what looks like maybe not the best supporting cast a little bit better.
Who's the leader of that defensive unit for the Patriots? I mean, it's interesting that the Patriots just welcome, Bennett right into the locker room when
Belichick.
It's right. It's Belichick. Is that the answer? And Brady, even though he's offense.
Yeah, well, I think Hightower is the guy on the defensive side of the ball, and he was hurt last year. So, I mean, him coming back is a big part of it as well. Up front, I mean, they lost their best player from last year, Trey Flowers, who went to Detroit with the big money free agent signing to rejoin Matt Patricia, and that's where Bennett comes in. And that's what they do. I mean, Trent Brown on the offensive side of the ball, right tackle, he gets a big deal. They have Isaiah Wynn, who's a former first-round pick, ready to step in. That's what the Patriots do. I mean, they don't overpay for guys who may look good on paper but will affect your cap situation, maybe hurt you in other areas. And they always have somebody in reserve ready to go, and it seems like they've done it again this year.
This week we're looking at the AFC East, or today we're looking at the AFC East. So let's go from who would you say, we'll let you pick, John, who would you say is the second team in the East?
Well, you can make an argument for any of them because that's where they are. But I think from a talent perspective, I think it's Joe Douglas and those New York Jets. I think Joe walks into a better situation than people realize. Part of that is it starts with the quarterback, Sam Darnold, who obviously was a first-round pick in 2018, a very high level, a third overall. So he's really, really talented. but they're also they have some good players in other places, especially on the defensive side and right up the middle. When you start talking about Leonard Williams and Quinnen Williams, who's their first pick this year, and then they signed C.J. Mosley, who's one of the best inside linebackers in this league, and then you also have Jamal Adams, who's one of the best safeties. So all of a sudden, when you're bad for a long period of time, like the Jets have been, and you have top 5 picks, all of a sudden you have Sam Darnold, and you do have Quinnen Williams, and you have Jamal Adams, who's a top 10 pick. And you get a few free agent signings like C.J. Mosley, Le'Veon Bell. That's not bad. And I would say, look, in a bad division where there's only one good team, they have the leg up talent-wise. Now, I question their choice in head coaches, and Adam Gase coming over from Miami, but that's before Joe got there, and we'll see how that works out. I think it's pretty clear, though, that they're the most talented of the also-rans in that division.
Yeah, and of course they made the splash with Le'Veon Bell, and you just wonder, is this the right? Do they have enough personnel, offensive line? I know Winters is pretty good up front there, but are they going to be able to utilize Le'Veon Bell in a way that Pittsburgh was able to?
Well, I doubt that because they're just not as good as a team, an organization, a coaching staff, pretty much everything. So I find it. I don't think they're going to be able to replicate what the Steelers did. But they do, as I said, they're on the upswing. A lot of it depends on how much Sam Darnold develops. And if he takes a big step forward in year 2, to have some threats. I mean, Robbie Anderson, not necessarily big names, but there's the guy the Eagles really wanted to trade for at the deadline last year when they got Golden Tate. He can really stretch the field. Quincy Enunwa is probably their best receiver. People might not know him, but he's a really good player. And then they signed Jamison Crowder, who's a great slot receiver. People know him from Washington.
Yeah.
So they have enough pieces in place. The offensive line, like a lot of teams in this league, has some issues, but they brought over Osemele from Oakland. He'll help a little bit at left guard. It's still a work in progress, though. And that's one of the reasons the Patriots, as I said, their strength is offensive line. Everybody else in that division kind of has a weak offensive line. And we see that throughout the league, a theme of bad football teams. They tend to have struggles on the offensive line.
Well, they got Leonard Williams, Quinnen Williams, C.J. Mosley, Avery Williamson can play. Tremaine Johnson's not bad. May and Adams are 2 good safeties. I mean, they've got do they have a playoff defense?
They certainly do. Like I said, if this were a baseball team, they're strong up the middle. Those guys right in the middle of the defense are all really, really good. And I'm talking about both Williamses up front. I mean, Quinnen's going to be a rookie, but I think he's the most talented player in this draft. Mosley, who probably got overpaid, but that's the nature of free agency. We just went through that with the NBA. If you get the free agency, you're going to get overpaid. Doesn't mean he's not really, really good. And Adams is a top 5 safety in this league already. So right up the middle, they're really good. They're really talented. And it kind of depends on the rest of the guys and how they kind of mix in. If they play at just an average level, that's going to be a pretty good defense.
How about the other team, that Buffalo team? Is this finally the year for the Buffalo Bills?
No one circles the wagon.
Well, I think 2 years ago was the year for the Buffalo Bills.
They missed their shot.
Yeah, well, now I'm joking, but they finally stopped the drought at least. They're still a long way off from being Jim Kelly and that bunch. And I think they've taken a step back, and part of that was by design. Anytime you draft a quarterback, same with the Jets, in the top 10, you're going to have most likely some growing pains, and that's what they're going through with Josh Allen. I think they will continue to grow through some of that this year, much similar to Sam Darnold. How big of a leap does Josh Allen take in year 2? I've said that a lot with Mike. I don't have a ton of confidence in him. I have more confidence in Sam Darnold only because I don't see the accuracy from Josh Allen. And that's a concern at this level. You generally don't get accurate at the pro level if you're not accurate at the college level.
And it doesn't help that Zay Jones and John Brown and Dawson Knox are his targets. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just pulled those guys right out. Right?
Cole Beasley from the Cowboys. Don't forget Cole Beasley as a slot receiver, which will actually help. I think John Brown's a nice fit, though, for that team simply because he can run. And he can – the one thing Josh Allen can do, nobody questions, is he's got arm strength. And he can throw it 60 yards down the field. So you're going to have to respect John Brown and his ability to stretch the defense. We'll see how it works out. But I think from a standpoint of what Josh Allen does well, I thought that was a good signing by the Bills to bring in John Brown.
Yeah, and by the way, they have LaShawn McCoy, Frank Gore, so, I mean, they
David
could potentially follow the Belichick model and just start running the ball every single play. Maybe they go all Navy on everybody.
Yeah, and hey, guess what? Josh Allen is way more athletic than people realize. He can run the football as well. So that's sort of a hidden part of their offense. I don't think you can do that consistently. I've talked about it a lot in today's NFL, certainly not a team like the Bills. But I do think at times, yeah, it'll help them. My biggest concern with their backfield is obviously the age of it. Frank Gore's been doing it for a really long time, so is Shady McCoy. But that is a really, really old backfield.
Yeah, and then their defense isn't bad, though, Josh. Hughes, Starlo Tudele, Ed Oliver, a high pick. Wallace isn't bad. Poyer and Hyde. I mean, their defense is okay.
Yeah, they're really good up front. I mean, that's one of the best front fours, I think, at least projection-wise in the NFL. You add Ed Oliver to Jerry Hughes is one of the most underrated pass rushers in this league, has been for a long time. Trent Murphy, people here will know him. He used to be an Eagles killer in Washington. Harrison Phillips is there as well. So they're pretty good up front. The back seven, I think, is more the issue. I think, Jordan Poyer, another guy people might remember from his time in Philadelphia, yeah. I think he had a career year last year. I don't know if you can expect him to have another season like that. Same thing with Micah Hyde. But Tre'Davious White is a really good corner, so that's something they can build on. But they're really good up front. I think they have a lot of question marks in the back seven.
All right, let's get out of the state of New York and head down to South Beach, where there's another young quarterback hanging out in South Beach, and then there's also an old quarterback hanging out down there. Are we going to see more Fitz magic? Is it the year for Josh Rosen? What's going on with those Miami Dolphins, John?
Well, I think the hope is it's going to be Josh Rosen long term. I mean, obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick is what he is, the ultimate bridge quarterback. And now he'll take his turn. He's been a starter in Buffalo. He's been a starter with the New York Jets. Now he'll probably start week one with the Miami Dolphins as everybody tries to chop down the New England Patriots using Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's probably not going to work. But overall, I mean, it's a sea change in Miami to go from Adam Gase to Brian Flores. I think that's a step forward to at least try to bring in some of what the Patriots have done. Talent-wise, though, this team is the worst, I think, in the division, and you could argue is the worst in the entire NFL. I mean, they're just not good on paper.
I'm going through their offense right now, like their roster, John, and I'm trying to find anyone. I'm trying, can you give me some insight on their
Stills
backfield?
And Parker are pretty good.
Yeah, sure, but outside of that, it's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If you look at it on paper, and that's what I just kind of said, it's not good. Devontae Parker, yeah, he's a former first-round pick, but he's not accomplished.
No.
Kenny Stills has done some things in this league, but he's not consistent. You have Bryce Butler, who's from Dallas, and everyone would kind of blow the horn for him with the Cowboys, but never did anything. And they're hoping he could turn the corner there as a slot receiver. But I mean, when you hear all this hope, you hope Devontae Parker lives up to his first-round pedigree. You hope Kenny Stills can add some consistency. You hope Bryce Butler can be what the Cowboys thought he was going to be. You hope Mike Gesicki, the Penn State tight end, turns into a star. Yeah, and you hope Josh Rosen can take the reins at the quarterback position. That's a lot of hoping, and that's not where you want to be in the NFL. You want constance, and you want to know who you can count on. And I look at Brian Flores down in Miami, and there's not a lot of players, especially offensively, where he can say, I can count on this guy, no doubt about it. It's just a bad football team.
So, by the way, Pro Football Focus ranked all the rosters of all 32 teams 32nd, 30th, and 29th. Bills, Dolphins, Jets. It just tells you how bad that division is. And the Patriots were
number one.
No, the Patriots were they number one? Yes, number one. Yeah,
number one. How are the Patriots number one?
Yeah, and that's when that list came out, we talked about it. Remember what Pro Football Focus is? It's an analytics-based organization. They are basing it off last season, and obviously the Patriots had tremendous success. They won the Super Bowl. So that's obviously they were successful. Now, if you project it moving forward, there's no way the Patriots have the most talented roster. And, oh, by the way, there's no way – what were the Jets, 29th? The Jets are not the 29th most talented team in this league. You could argue they're top half just from –
Actually, the Jets were 31st.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about
31 Jets, 30th Miami, and 29. They were 29, 30, and 31. The three of them right in a row.
That's great.
Well, if you put the Jets roster next to the Dolphins roster, tell me which roster you would want. It's not even a question.
All right. Football at 4 tomorrow. We will look at the North and the AFC North, South on Wednesday, West on Thursday, and then we'll go over the conference as a whole on Friday. Next week it will be the NFC, and then that'll lead us right into Eagles training camp, which opens 17 days from now. Not 13, 17. That was my bad. I'll take the heat on that.
Sorry.
I messed up. I'm owning it right now. Here we go. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Well, John, it looks like you like the Patriots, and then 2, 3, and 4 would be?
Flip a coin. No, I would say Jets 2, Bills 3, Dolphins. Can we put them in 6th place? Can we put 2 other teams in there and just put them in 6th place?
Who used to be in the AFC East? Who left? Put those teams back in there.
Now you're putting me on the spot.
Blackjacks are 4th.
Yeah, put the Blackjacks.
Who were the teams in the? Yeah, who were the teams in the AFC East back in the day before they went to this current configuration? All right, Sports Bash Live,
Bills,
football at
Jets,
4 at
Dolphins.
Who was there? There had to be another team in that division, right? It wasn't always a 4-team division, was it?
No. Yeah, I got to think. You're putting me on the spot. I got to think on that one. Now people are going to criticize me. Thanks, Mike.
No problem. At JF McMullen with criticisms. All right. John, take care, pal.
All right. Thanks, guys.